They say every storm tells a story, a narrative of pressure and release written in wind and water. I was a detective. I dealt in facts, not folklore. But the storm that night wasn't interested in my facts. It was telling a story of its own, and it had decided that I, Detective Harding, was its main character. I was running, not from a suspect, but from myself, from a case that had ended badly, leaving a bitter taste of failure in my mouth. My car was the only bubble of light and sound on a lonely mountain pass as the rain began to fall. It wasn't just rain. It was a torrential, violent downpour that turned the asphalt into a black mirror. Then my engine sputtered, coughed, and died. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the drumming of rain on the roof. I was stranded. No phone signal, no signs of life for miles, except for one, a faint, warm light glowing through the sheets of rain. It was an old sign, its neon letters flickering bravely against the storm, the Penumbra Hotel. The hotel was a relic from another time, a grand, dark wooded lodge that seemed to lean against the wind. It felt less like a business and more like a secret. I pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped inside, trading the chaos of the storm for a heavy, waiting silence. The lobby was vast, dimly lit, and decorated with faded tapestries and hunting trophies whose glass eyes seemed to watch me. A few other souls were stranded here with me. I could feel the tension in the air, thick as the scent of wet wool and old wood. In one corner sat a young, beautiful woman with sad eyes, staring into a cold fireplace. Her name was Isabel. Near her, a loud, arrogant man in an expensive suit was talking heatedly into a dead phone. This was her husband, Marcus Blackwood. Arguing with him was his business partner, Arthur Vance, a nervous man whose face was a mask of stress. An eccentric, older scholar named Elias Thorne sat alone, buried in a strange, leather-bound book, seemingly oblivious to everyone. And overseeing it all was the hotel manager, Mr. Finch, a tall, gaunt man who moved without a sound. "The lines are down," Finch announced to the room, his voice a dry rustle. "The road will be impassable until morning, at least." Blackwood scoffed loudly. "Unacceptable. I have a meeting in the city. There must be something you can do." His argument with his partner, Vance, grew louder, their voices sharp daggers in the quiet lobby. I found a seat in the corner, content to be an observer. I was off duty. This wasn't my problem. Just as their argument reached a crescendo, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the entire lobby for a split second. And in that flash of white light, I saw it. A fleeting, impossible image. It was an aura around Arthur Vance. It was a deep, fiery red after-image of pure, unadulterated rage that clung to him for a heartbeat before vanishing. I blinked, rubbing my eyes. It had to be an illusion, a trick of the light on my tired, overwrought brain. A momentary madness brought on by the storm. I dismissed it. I was a man of facts, not phantoms. An hour later, Mr. Finch announced that rooms were ready. The tense group dispersed, each retreating to their own temporary cell. Blackwood stormed up the grand staircase first, his wife trailing silently behind him like a ghost. I found my own room, the silence of the hotel a welcome relief. I was just starting to unwind when it happened. The lights in my room flickered once, twice, and then died completely, plunging the entire hotel into absolute pitch-black darkness. The heavy silence that followed was deeper than before. It was a breathless, waiting silence. Then, a woman's scream tore through the darkness from the floor above, sharp and terrified. And at the exact same moment, a deafening clap of thunder shook the very foundations of the old hotel. My detective instincts, buried under months of exhaustion, roared back to life. I grabbed the heavy flashlight from my bag. The hotel hallway was a mess of panicked shadows as the other guests stumbled out of their rooms, their faces pale in the scattered light of their phones. The scream had come from Isabel Blackwood. She stood before her suite's door, her hands over her mouth, her body trembling. "It's locked," she sobbed. "From the inside. He won't answer." I took charge. The door was solid oak. It took the combined weight of myself and Mr. Vance to finally break the lock. The room inside was dark and still. My flashlight beam cut through the blackness, finding the source of the silence. Marcus Blackwood was slumped in an armchair by the window, his head lolled to one side, his eyes wide and vacant. There was no obvious wound, no sign of a struggle. On the table beside him was an empty glass and a small, overturned vial. It could have been a heart attack. It could have been suicide. But the locked door and the scream made it a murder scene. I was a detective again, whether I wanted to be or not. And I was trapped in a hotel with 4 suspects and a storm that felt like an accomplice. I interviewed them one by one in the grand, dark lobby, with the thunder providing a rhythmic, percussive score to their lies and half-truths. I started with Arthur Vance, the business partner. He was sweating, despite the chill in the air. He denied everything. "Yes, we argued," he spat. "The man was a monster, a shark. He was going to ruin me." As he spoke, another flash of lightning bleached the room white. And there it was again, clinging to him like a second skin. A burning, furious red aura of pure rage. "You hated him enough to kill him," I stated, my voice low. He flinched, but shook his head. "I hated him. I'm glad he's dead. But I didn't do it. I was in my room." Next was the manager, Mr. Finch. He was calm, collected, his hands steepled before him. He admitted Blackwood had threatened him. He wanted to buy this hotel, my family's legacy, and turn it into some soulless glass resort, he said, his voice laced with cold fury. As he spoke of the threat, a lightning flash revealed a different color around him, a deep, icy blue echo of fear. "You were afraid of him," I said. "Yes," Finch admitted without hesitation. "But fear does not make one a murderer, detective." I moved on to the widow, Isabel. She was wrapped in a blanket, weeping softly. Her grief seemed genuine. The lightning that flashed during our conversation showed the most confusing echo yet. A swirling, violet aura of profound sadness. But mixed within it, like a thread of gold, was a shimmering, undeniable echo of relief. My investigation was yielding more questions than answers. Motives and emotions were everywhere, but the facts were a locked room mystery. As I was pacing the lobby, the quiet scholar, Elias Thorne, approached me. He had been watching me intently. "Shh, you see them too, don't you?" he whispered, his eyes bright with a strange intelligence. "The colors, the emotional residue." I stared at him, speechless. He explained, "This is not a normal storm. It's a rare phenomenon, a Karaunos event." He spoke of folklore, of storms that temporarily thin the veil between the physical and the psychic world. "The lightning illuminates the truth of the heart," he said. "But be warned, emotion is not action. A man can feel rage and not kill." His words confirmed my own impossible observations. This wasn't a hallucination. It was my only tool. But it was a flawed one. The rage was real, the fear was real, the grief and relief were real. But who was the killer? I had to go back to the source. Back to the room where Marcus Blackwood sat, forever silent in his chair. The room was cold and still. The storm raged on outside, a constant, violent symphony. I needed one more look. I stood over the body, my flashlight beam tracing the scene, looking for the one detail I had missed, the one physical fact. I waited, my senses on high alert. The thunder rolled, closer this time. And then the lightning came, a brilliant, blinding flash. In that whiteout moment, I saw it. It wasn't on any of the people. It was a faint, ghostly echo lingering on the empty glass on the table. It was a sickly, yellow-green aura, an emotion I hadn't seen yet. The color of pure, triumphant malice. Triumphant malice, the color of a predator that has successfully trapped its prey. But the prey was Blackwood himself. How could a man's last drink be filled with triumph? The thought was a key turning a lock in my mind. The locked room, the vial, the motives he had so carefully provoked in everyone. It wasn't a series of clues. It was a script, and he was the author. I returned to the lobby. The remaining guests were huddled together, their faces pale masks in the flickering lamplight. The storm outside raged, a final furious act before its inevitable end. "I know what happened," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. I looked at Arthur Vance. "Your rage was real. He wanted you to be angry. He needed a suspect full of hate." I turned to Mr. Finch. "Your fear was real. He needed a suspect who was being threatened, someone with a clear motive to stop him." Then I looked at Isabel, the grieving widow. "And your sorrow was real, but so was your relief, the relief that it was finally over." They all stared at me, confused. "But none of you killed him," I said. "The only person in that room with malice was Marcus Blackwood himself." The final, brilliant flash of lightning illuminated their shocked faces as I laid out the truth. Blackwood was dying, not from a killer, but from a terminal illness. He was also drowning in debt. His life insurance policy was massive, but it contained a suicide clause. It would not pay out. So he orchestrated his masterpiece, his final, cruelest business deal. He didn't just die, he framed his own murder. He provoked everyone, creating a perfect circle of suspects. He ingested a fast-acting poison from that vial. He used a simple mechanism, a piece of string and a weight, to lock the door from the inside after he was already gone. His last emotion wasn't fear of death. It was the sick, yellow-green triumph of a man who had beaten the system one last time. Isabel began to weep, but this time it was the sound of a dam breaking. "He was a monster," she whispered. "He told me the plan. He said it was the only way to leave me with something other than his debts. He made me promise to scream." The case was solved, but there was no killer to arrest, just a room full of victims, including the one in the armchair. As dawn began to break, the storm outside finally exhausted itself. The thunder softened to a distant rumble. The rain became a gentle patter. A fragile gray light filtered into the lobby. The road would soon be clear. We would all leave this place. We would carry this impossible story with us, a shared secret that would never appear in any official report. Driving away from the Penumbra Hotel, I watched the rising sun burn away the last of the storm clouds. The world was returning to normal, but I was different. I had looked into the heart of a storm and seen the color of a man's soul. I understood that some truths are not made of facts and evidence. They are made of emotion, of echoes left behind in quiet, lonely places. Have you ever felt it? A strange, leftover emotion in an empty room. A whisper of a story that has no one left to tell it. If you have, leave a like. It's a quiet way of saying that you've been listening to the silence too. And subscribe, because there are so many more echoes out there in the dark, just waiting for someone to notice.